I did this piece a really long time ago, so I actually can't totally remember exactly how I did it, but I'm pretty sure that I can do a good approximation. And you know what? It doesn't have to look the same anyway. It's not a photocopy, and everyone's version will be different anyway, so I think that's okay. The colors will probably be a bit different too, but I'm going to try and stick with some of the main techniques that I used, which were watercolor. I'm probably not going to be able to fit this in the shot at the same time, but I will talk about it, and maybe I have included it as a photo, so maybe if you could reference the photo or print it out, that might be good. So the first thing is, so there's two things. So the first thing I would do is I would look at this page and say, okay, these two figures are taking up most of the space on the page. There's only really a little bit at the top. So you just look at the proportion of the figures and then what's the proportion of the background. So the girl's head, and then I just do really light kind of sketchy lines, and you know, even quite, this is kind of a different style to how I normally draw, I think because I'm doing a tutorial, but that's okay. So I think I originally got this dress from like a fashion magazine like Vogue or something. So that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, is that it can be really nice if you know, probably it depends on your process. Like, do you have an idea of what you want to paint or draw before you paint it? Or do you just want to freestyle and let it come out? So what I would do is I would collect a few different things that have a style that I like, or like, I think what I really loved about this was the dress. That was the main thing that I liked. And I just started with the dress, and I might have even used the model's face that was in the magazine, or I might have found a different face. Oh my gosh, so as I'm drawing this, I'm realizing there are so many layers to this little illustration. I have really done a lot of layers. That's okay. It's probably like a complex thing to start with, but it's the idea that matters, isn't it? So this would have happened over a long time. So I just kind of do these little lines, shaping out the space of how it's going to fill. And I'm all the time adjusting. So my eye is moving back and forth between my piece of artwork and the other part that's really important. So yes, it's good to have your hands moving well, but the other part of making art is to have your mind moving well, because it's really easy to get like, already as I'm drawing it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this does not look as good as that original one. It's being recorded, and like fears are coming up. So that's like the other part. It's not just your hands, it's the space that your mind's in. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to, I've actually never really tried to recreate a piece of artwork like this before. So it's kind of quite interesting, because obviously I was in a certain mood when I made this. So again, that's kind of hard to recreate that mood. And so I'm just noticing that my eye is also shifting between the details and then the bigger picture. So I'm looking at the tiny angles of this dress, like, okay, they kind of go like this, and then this bit goes like that. But then I'm like, oh, yes, she's kind of sitting in the wrong. This picture does come down a bit longer than my original, but that's okay. And her feet are here. And then she's got like a puffy sleeve. So something that I also really like doing is illustrating garments. So I think that's from when I worked in fashion. So I just spent so many years illustrating the to create the texture. And the other thing that I would like to say, something that's helped me too, is sometimes when I'm drawing things, you know, you do go for that realistic look. Obviously you want things in proportion, or do you? Because I'm kind of looking at this like, okay, so that arm looks a little bit long and strange, but maybe that's okay. Maybe that's, you know, oh, and this is on a strange angle as well. That's okay. And then I've got this staff coming down like this. And then I'll just put a little bit of the details in on her face. But the good thing is that this is just the start. So, and this is also, I think I mentioned this in the beginning, this is also why I really like multimedia. And then I'm going to just block in a bit of the horse. Is that, you know, it really does not matter what I'm putting down now. It's just a kind of a guide. I don't know if I even really did it like this, actually, to be honest. I think I might have, who knows, it was a long time ago. But it is quite an art to doing tutorials, because normally I'm just in this selfish headspace of being silent and focusing on the shapes that I'm creating. But you're also going to have to explain how you make those shapes. So I'm learning at the same time. Yeah, it's really cute. The little kids that I teach, they've got this thing where as soon as they make a mark, not all of them, some of them, they'll be like, where's the rubber? I need to rub it out. And I'm always like, no, stop taking that rubber up, because all these little shadowy, echoey lines are what makes it, kind of gives it a nice depth. I mean, that is a different type of drawing, which is really technical, of course, but I quite like that there's lots of little mistakes, like you've tried a path, okay, that didn't work, so, but I like where it started, but I don't like where it ended, or I didn't really like when it went halfway through. And it's just a really good metaphor for life, actually. You know, you can look back at things and think, okay, so I liked how it started, or anything, writing a story. And just because you don't like, oh my gosh, that leg looks a bit strange. Just because you don't like the whole, sorry, one part, doesn't mean you have to throw the whole thing out. So it's kind of like you really have to suspend judgment. So that is also a practice of the mind that is really good to have in your life as well, when you're trying new things, or just generally. Okay, so this is his. So that's kind of looking quite similar, actually. And he's got a nice little soulful eye. I like the eyes on this horse. And he's got a nostril and a nose. So the other thing is, I did no warm-up drawing. I just jumped straight into it. So I went from, okay, so I think that's looking fairly similar. I don't know if you can see. So what I like about it is that they're both taking up the same amount of space. That's a little bit, that bit could come out a little bit more. And that could come out a bit more. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. And then she's got a little feet here. I've got this way of doing feet and hands. That's, I don't know, it's just how I do them. And then she's standing on a little bit of earth. Okay, so I might leave that video as is. So that's just sketching in. I'll give her some eyes. I think I gave her quite big eyes, actually. They're a bit manga. You know, those big eyes. Oh, she looks a bit frightened. We can fix that. That's just a facial expression thing. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as is. So that's just my sketchy bit. And then I'm going to make another video where we start to put down a bit of colour and some interesting lines. We'll do that next. Okay. So, because I have gone over the top, I have lost a bit of my aqua painter lines, but that's okay. I can go back and fix them up later. Now the eyeball looks a little bit white. He's got such a cute little look, doesn't he? Now that's not exactly the same, that peacock, but that's okay. And then I've got these nice kind of ferns. So generally with brushes, if you're going to be doing details, a pointed tip is kind of nice. And if you're going to be colouring big flat areas of colour, these ones are kind of nice. But look, I'm not too fussed over. It does make a difference though. It is annoying if you're trying to paint and your pieces of your brush come out. That is super annoying. Okay, so there's kind of these leafy ferns here in the background. So the best way to draw things like this type of shape is so I just thought I'd quickly go through the last little finishing touches. So I wrote these words in Texter. I added some gold detail in the dress, and I just went over the top and did bits and pieces of charcoal and generally